Now, a new classic serial, and the first in a two-part adaptation for BBC Radio 4 by Tom Holland.
The Iliad by Homer. Episode 1. In pursuit of the beautiful Helen, stolen by Trojan Prince Paris, an Achaean battle fleet has sailed from Greece. For 9 years, the army of the Achaeans has lain encamped on the plain before Troy. But still the great city stands, and in the Achaean ranks, failure breeds resentment and feuding. Christopher Eccleston plays Achilles, the Achaeans' greatest warrior. Ian Glenn plays Hector, his enemy and Troy's greatest warrior. And Derek Jacobi is the voice of Homer.
Rage, goddess, sing the rage of Peleus' son Achilles, murderous, doomed, that cost the Achaeans countless losses, hurling down to the house of death so many sturdy souls, great fighters' souls, but made their bodies carrion, feasts for the dogs and birds, and the will of Zeus was moving toward its end. Begin muse when the two Achaeans first broke and clashed, Agamemnon, lord of men, and brilliant Achilles. What god drove them to fight with such a fury? Apollo, the son of Zeus and Leto. His priest, Chryses, approached the Achaeans' fast ships where they lay long and black upon the Trojan shore to win his daughter back, bringing a ransom of gold, and bearing, high in hand, wound on a golden staff, the wreaths of the god, the distant, deadly archer. He begged the whole Achaean army, but most of all the two supreme commanders, Atreus' two sons.
Agamemnon, Menelaus, all Achaeans geared for war. May the gods who hold the halls of Olympus give you Priam's city to plunder, then safe passage home. Just set my daughter free, my dear one. Here, accept this gold, this ransom. Honor the god who strikes from worlds away, the son of Zeus, Apollo.
But his appeal brought no joy to the heart of Agamemnon. The king dismissed the priest with a brutal order ringing in his ears.
Never again, old man, let me catch sight of you by the hollow ships. The staff and wreaths of a god will never save you then. The girl? I won't give up the girl. Now go. Don't tempt my wrath, and you may depart alive.
The old man was terrified. He obeyed the order, turning, trailing away in silence down the shore, where the battle lines of breakers crash and drag.
Hear me, Apollo, god of the silver bow, god of the plague. If I ever roofed a shrine to please your heart, ever burned the long, rich bones of bulls and goats on your holy altar, now! Now bring my prayer to pass! Pay the Achaeans back! Your arrows for my tears!
His prayer went up, and Phoebus Apollo heard him. Down he strode from Olympus' peaks, storming at heart, with his bow and plague arrows slung across his shoulders. The arrows clanged at his back as the god quaked with rage. Over against the ships he dropped to his knee, let fly a shaft, and a terrifying clash rang out from the great silver bow. First he went for the mules and circling dogs, but then, launching a piercing shaft at the men themselves, he cut them down in droves. And the corpse fires burned on, night and day, no end in sight. 9 days the arrows of the gods swept through the army, and on the 10th, Achilles called all ranks to muster.
The gods enraged, because Agamemnon spurned his priest. He refused to free his daughter. He refused the ransom. That's why Apollo sends the plague, and he will send us more until we give back the girl to her loving father Chryses, the priest of Apollo.
So he declared, and sat down. But among them rose the fighting son of Atreus, lord of the far-flung kingdoms, Agamemnon. Furious, his dark heart filled to the brim, blazing with anger now, his eyes like searing fire.
Oh, bruit it about as fact! Why the deadly archer multiplies our pains? Because I refused that glittering ransom for Chryses' daughter. But I am willing to give her back, even so, if that is best for all. Only fetch me another prize, and straight off too, else I alone of the Achaeans go without my honour.
Just how, Agamemnon, most grasping man alive? How can the generous Achaeans give you prizes now? I know of no troves of treasure, piled, lying idle anywhere. Whatever we dragged from towns, we plundered. All's been portioned out. But collect it? Call it back from our foot soldiers? That would be the disgrace. So return the girl to the god, at least for now.
Oh, no, you won't get past me. Take me in that way. What do you want? To cling to your own prize while I sit calmly by, empty-handed here? I will be there in person at your tents, Achilles, to take your slave girl in all her beauty, your own prize, so you can learn just how much greater I am than you.
He broke off, and anguish gripped Achilles. The heart in his rugged chest was pounding, torn. Should he draw the long, sharp sword slung at his hip, thrust through the ranks and kill Agamemnon now? Or check his rage and beat his fury down? But just as he drew his huge blade from its sheath, down from the vaulting heavens swept Athena. Only Achilles saw her, none of the other fighters. Struck with wonder, he spun round. He knew her at once. Pallas Athena. The terrible blazing of those eyes.
Down from the skies I come to check your rage. The Queen of Heaven here has sped me down. She loves you both. She cares for you both alike. Stop this fighting now. Don't lay hand to sword. Hold back now. Obey us both.
I must. When the two of you hand down commands, goddess, a man submits though his heart breaks with fury. Better for him by far. If a man obeys the gods, they're quick to hear his prayers.
And with that, Achilles stayed his burly hand on the silver hilt. He would not fight the orders of Athena. Soaring home to Olympus, she rejoined the gods aloft in the halls of Zeus, heaven's mighty king. But Achilles rounded on Agamemnon once again.
Staggering drunk, with your dog's eyes, your fawn's heart. I have no mind to linger here, disgraced, brimming your cup and piling up your plunder. Someday, I swear, a yearning for Achilles will strike Achaea's sons and all your armies. But then, Agamemnon, harrowed as you will be, nothing you can do can save you. Not when your hordes of fighters drop and die, cut down by the hands of man-killing Hector. Then you will tear your heart out, desperate, raging that you disgraced me, the best of the Achaeans.
Achilles strode off to his trim ships and shelters, back to his friend Patroclus and their comrades. Agamemnon had a vessel hauled down to the sea, and led Chryses' daughter in all her beauty amidships. The party launched out on the sea's foaming lanes, while the son of Atreus told his troops to wash to purify themselves from the filth of the plague. Then he called his 2 heralds, ready, willing aids.
Go to Achilles' lodge. Take his captive at once, his beautiful slave girl, his prize, by the hand, and bring her here.
They obeyed their great king's command, and found Achilles beside his lodge and black hull, seated grimly.
You're not to blame. No one but Agamemnon. He lacks the sense to see a day will come when his armies need me, to save their ranks from ignominious stark defeat and safeguard the Achaeans battling by their ships. Go, Patroclus, Prince. Bring out the girl. Hand her to them so they can take her back.
Patroclus obeyed his great friend's command. He led the slave girl in all her beauty from the lodge, and handed her over to the men to take away. And the 2 walked back along the Achaean ships, while she trailed on behind, reluctant every step. But Achilles wept, and slipping away from his companions, far apart sat down on the beach of the heaving grey sea, and scanned the endless ocean. He wept and prayed, and his noble mother Thetis heard him, seated near her father, the old man of the sea, in the salt green depths. Suddenly up she rose from the churning surf like mist, and settling down beside him as he wept, stroked Achilles gently, whispering his name.
Mother, go to Olympus, plead with Zeus, persuade him somehow to help the Trojan cause, to pin the Achaeans back against their ships, so even mighty Agamemnon can see how mad he was to disgrace Achilles, the best of the Achaeans.
Nor did Thetis neglect her son's appeal. Soaring up to the broad sky and Mount Olympus, she found the son of Cronus gazing down on the world.
Zeus, Father Zeus, if I ever served you well, bring this prayer to pass. Honor my son Achilles. For now the lord of men, Agamemnon, has disgraced him, seizes and keeps his prize, tears her away himself. But you, exalt him, Olympian Zeus. Your urgings rule the world. Come, grant the Trojans victory after victory, till the Achaean armies pay my dear son back, building higher the honor he deserves.
And Zeus, the son of Cronus, bowed. His craggy dark brows and the deathless locks came pouring down from the thunderhead of the great immortal king, and giant shock waves spread through all Olympus. That night he sent a murderous dream to Agamemnon. It went winging off, and passing quickly along the fast-trimmed ships made for the king, and found him soon sound asleep in his tent. Hovering at his head, the vision rose like Odysseus, Laertes' son, the chief Agamemnon honored most.
Still asleep, Agamemnon? Listen to me quickly. For 9 years our ship timbers have rotted, our cables snapped and frayed, and across the sea our wives and helpless children wait in the halls, wait for our return. But now Zeus commands you to arm your long-haired Achaeans, to attack at once, full force. Now we can take the broad streets of Troy.
And rousing himself from sleep, the divine voice swirling round him, Agamemnon sat up, bolt awake. He commanded heralds to cry out loud and clear and summon the long-haired Achaeans to battle. As ravening fire rips through big stands of timber high on a mountain ridge, and the blaze flares miles away, so from the marching troops the blaze of bronze armor, splendid and superhuman, flared across the earth, flashing into the air to hit the skies, sweeping through the plain at blazing speed. In Troy as well they rushed to arms. All the gates were flung wide, and the Trojan mass surged out. Tall Hector, Priam's son, with helmet flashing in the lead. Priam's son, and in his command, by far the greatest, bravest army, divisions harnessed in armor, veterans bristling spears, horses, chariots, men on foot behind him, with cries and the din of war like wildfowl when the long hoarse cries of cranes sweep on against the sky, and the great formations flee from winter's grim, ungodly storms. The noise of battle brought King Priam to the looming Scaean gate, and white-armed Helen, too, her heart filled with yearning, warm and deep, for her abandoned husband Menelaus, her city, and her parents. Quickly cloaking herself in shimmering linen, out of her rooms she rushed, live tears welling, and catching sight of her, moving along the ramparts, the old chiefs of Troy, as they sat aloft the tower, murmured to one another, gentle, winged words, clear as cicadas settled on treetops, lifting their voices through the forest, rising softly, falling, dying away.
Who on earth could blame them?
Oh, no wonder.
The men of Troy and Achaeans under arms have suffered years of agony, all for her.
As such a woman, beauty, terrible beauty.
They murmured low, but Priam, raising his voice, called across to Helen.
Come over here, dear child. Sit in front of me, so you can see your husband of long ago, your kinsman, and your people.
And all for me. All are here for me, whore that I am. And your son, who stole me, blind, mad Paris. Oh, the two of us. Zeus planted a killing doom within us both.
I don't blame you. I hold the gods to blame. They're the ones who brought this war upon me. Devastating war against the Achaeans.
If only death had pleased me then. Grim death. That day I followed your son Paris to Troy, forsaking Menelaus, my kinsman, and my child. Oh, how I wish some black whirlwind had rushed me into the surf, where the roaring breakers crash and drag, and the waves had swept me off, before all this had happened. But the gods ordained it all.
And meanwhile, Paris himself, magnificent as a god, the skin of a leopard slung across his shoulders, mocked Menelaus in the Achaean front line, the man from whom he had stolen long-haired Helen. Menelaus, too, was thrilled at heart. Princely Paris there, right before his eyes, the outlaw, the adulterer. Now, for revenge, he thought. And down he leapt from his chariot, fully armed, and hit the ground. But Paris, right in the no-man's land along the lines he strode, gripping his spear mid-haft, staving men to a standstill. The long-haired Achaean archers aimed at Paris till King Odysseus cried out in a ringing voice,
Hold back, Achaeans! Stop your salvos! Look, Paris, with that flashing helmet of his. The man is trying to tell us something now.
They held their attack. Quickly, men fell silent.
Hear me, Trojans. Achaeans, geared for combat. Hear the challenge of Paris. Pit me against Menelaus. Right between the lines, we'll fight it out for Helen and all her wealth.
A hushed silence held the ranks. And Menelaus, whose cry could marshal armies, urged both sides.
Now hear me out as well. Such limited vengeance hurts me most of all, but I intend that we will part in peace at last, Trojans and Achaeans. Look what heavy casualties you have suffered just for me. My violent quarrel, and Paris, who brought it on you all. Now we'll fight! And death to the one marked out for doom and death!
The Achaean and Trojan forces both exulted, hoping this would end the agonies of war. They hauled their chariots up in ranks, at rest. The troops dismounted and stripped away their arms and laid them down on the earth. Crowded together, hardly a foot of ploughland showed between them. Priam's son, Prince Hector, and royal Odysseus measured off the ground for a single combat first, then dropped 2 stones in a helmet, lots for casting who would be the first to hurl his bronze-tipped spear. The armies prayed and stretched their hands to the gods. As tall Hector, eyes averted under his flashing helmet, shook the 2 lots hard, and Paris' lot leapt out. Magnificent Paris, fair-haired Helen's consort, brandished his spear, tense with fury. Suddenly, he hurled. His spear's long shadow flew, and the shaft hit Menelaus' round shield, full center. Not pounding through, the brazen point bent back in the tough armor. But his turn next. Menelaus, shaking his spear, he hurled, and its long shadow flew, and the shaft hit Paris' round shield, hit full center, ripping down and in through the breastplate finely worked, tearing the war shirt close by Paris' flank it jabbed. But the Trojans swerved aside and dodged black death. So now Menelaus drew his sword with silver studs, and hoisting the weapon high, brought it smashing down on the helmet ridge. But the blade smashed where it struck, jagged shatters flying. It dropped from the hand of Menelaus, who lunged at Paris, grabbing his horsehair crest, swinging him round, starting to drag him into Achaean lines. And now the braided chin strap holding his helmet tight was gouging his soft throat. Paris was choking, strangling, but Aphrodite, Zeus's daughter, quick to the mark, snapped the rawhide strap, cut from the bludgeoned ox, and the helmet came off, empty, in Menelaus' fist. Back at his man he sprang, enraged, with brazen spear, mad for the kill, but Aphrodite snatched Paris away. Easy work for a god. Wrapped him in swirls of mist, and set him down in his bedroom, filled with scent. Then off she went herself to summon Helen, who knew the goddess at once. The long, lithe neck, the smooth, full breasts, and the fire in those eyes. Shrouding herself in her glinting silver robes, Helen went along, in silence. The goddess led the way, and once they arrived at Paris' sumptuous halls, the attendants briskly turned to their own work, as Helen, in all her radiance, climbed the steps to the bedroom under the high vaulting roof. Paris led the way. His wife went with him. And now, while the two made love in the large carved bed, Menelaus stalked like a wild beast up and down the lines. And Marshal Agamemnon called out to the armies.
Hear me now, you Trojans, Dardans, Trojan allies. Clearly, victory goes to Menelaus, dear to Ares. You must surrender Helen and all her treasure with her.
His armies roared assent. But aloft by the side of Zeus, the gods sat in council, conferring across Olympus' golden floor.
So, now we plan how the war will all work out. Do we rouse the pain and grisly fighting once again? Or hand down pacts of peace between both armies? If only it might prove well and good to all, to every immortal god, men might still live on in royal Priam's citadel. And Helen of Sparta? Menelaus just might lead her home again.
But Athena and Hera, Zeus's ox-eyed queen, muttered between themselves, huddled together, plotting Troy's destruction, until Hera could hold the anger in her breast no longer.
What are you saying? How can you think of making all my labour worthless, all gone for nothing? Mortal labour, the sweat I poured, my horses panting, spent from launching Achaea's armies, heaping pains on Priam and Priam's sons.
Insatiable Hera, how great are the pains that Priam and Priam's sons have heaped on you, that you rage on, relentless, forever bent on raising the world-built heights of Troy. Only if you could breach their gates and their long walls and devour Priam and Priam's sons and the Trojan armies raw, then you just might cure your rage at last.
I am a god too, my descent the same as yours. So come, yield to me now on this one point.
Well, do as you please.
Then quickly, order Athena down to battle now, into the killing grounds of Trojans and Achaeans, and see that the Trojans break the sworn truce first, and trample on the Achaeans in their triumph.
The father of men and gods complied at once. Like a shooting star, Athena flashed across the earth, plunging down in the midst of both camped forces. Terror gripped the fighters looking on. As Achaeans and Trojans wondered what was coming, Athena merged in the Trojan columns like a fighter. Then and there, she unstrapped a polished bow, flipped the lid of a quiver, plucked an arrow, fletched and never shot, a shaft of black pain. The bow sprang. The string sang out. Arrow shot away, razor sharp and raging, to whip through Achaean ranks. The tip of the weapon grazed Menelaus' flesh, piercing the guard he wore to shield his loins, his best defense. The shaft pierced even this, and the dark blood came spurting from the wound. It went staining down the sturdy thighs and shins of Menelaus. The lord of men, Agamemnon, shuddered, frightened to see the dark blood gushing from the wound.
Dear brother, look how the Trojans have laid you low, trampling down our solemn binding truce. Transgressors will pay the price, a tremendous price, with their own heads, their wives, and all their children.
But the red-haired Menelaus tried to calm him down.
Courage. Don't alarm the men, not for a moment. The point's not lodged in a mortal spot. You see?
Pray God you are right, dear brother Menelaus. But the wound, a healer will treat it, apply drugs, and put a stop to the black waves of pain.
And all the while they worked over Menelaus, whose cry could marshal armies. The Achaeans donned their gear and roused their lust for war. Each captain ordered his men, and the ranks moved on in silence. You'd never think so many troops could march, holding their voices in their chests, all silent.